everybody. Welcome back to another Macabre Daily interview. And this month, we're bringing a really special conversation that I'm excited about in honor of November, which is Native American Heritage Month. And to that effect, I'm really honored to be joined by Morley Nelson, who hey there. Whose first feature film, Uncontained, was just released earlier this year. It's an awesome entry to join kind of the ranks of Indigenous horror, but also a new movie kind of putting its own spin on the zombie subgenre too. So Morley, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Thank you for having me. This is fantastic.
Yeah, welcome. I'm glad to talk to you. So, I often forget to do this at the beginning of my interviews. I'm going to do it today. Can you first just like tell us a little bit about your movie? I always forget to ask what the movie is about, and I just jump into conversation.
Sure. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, our movie is I mean the if you look on IMDb, I think the log line is a mysterious drifter comes across an abandoned boy and his little sister and has to struggles to protect them against a militia and a militia leader searching for his missing daughter and a infection that turns people into a feral-like state.
Hmm.
I think that's off the top of my head. I don't remember. It's changed so many times. Like once your film gets out and a distributor picks it up, and then their marketing team is like, your log line's good, but what about this, and this? And you're like, oh yeah, that's way better. And then so you do that, and then you're like, well, what was my log line? And then and you worked. It's nice. I was fortunate enough. The marketing team at Cineverse is awesome, and so instead of just saying it's gonna be this and we're gonna do that, it was what about this and what about that, and do you have any input? And so that was nice. And then coming out, figuring out the new log line and the new short description, and then that goes on Amazon Prime and Apple and everything, and then the longer synopsis that goes on other stuff. I don't know what that is, but at some point I'm sure it'll be useful. So, but yeah, that's kind of it. Really, it's at the end of the day, it's structured as a Western. I really like um, Sergio Carbucci.
Okay.
Um, he's an Italian. I think he's known as like the Italian spaghetti Western kind of guy, and he had Guy Nero was in a lot of his movies. Um, yeah, he's famous for his like Django
Mm.
trilogy, and he was really famous for having like these epic sweeping shots of nature and then focusing in on the character through the story and everything. So that was kind of how I structured it, even though it's a horror movie. It's I think horror fans are really, really quick and really, really smart, and I think they're looking for something that stimulates their brains, and so I
Mhm.
added a ton of story and a ton, because that's what I look for. When I just made a movie where I'm like, I love horror movies. What would I want to see? And so that was kind of the impetus for the how the movie was made. But the script is essentially structured as a Western, but with overwhelming horror themes. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of, I knew horror fans would really enjoy it if I could just get it done. So um, that's kind of it. And the story takes place in modern times. It's pre-outbreak. It's just the infancy of this kind of zombie virus starting to come out into the world and the government shutting everything down, and
Mhm.
we all have been through that, so we can all relate to that. And then the the geographical environment is out in the woods in the middle of nowhere in the middle of winter, right along the Canadian border. um, and so you're looking at freezing cold elements, and these two kids in the middle of nowhere not being able to go anywhere 40 miles from any kind of town, right? And they're in the middle of nowhere for a specific reason as it relates to story. And then the main character, the man, is just a like an everyday common hero, and he's kind of the intermediary between two worlds, and that's kind of where his place is in the story. And he discovers himself throughout the movie, and of course, we have um, a lot of infected and people trying to figure out what they are and who they are and how all that stuff comes into play. So originally it was designed as a TV series, and
Oh,
um,
okay.
like I'm never going to get a TV series off the ground. So let's introduce people into this like world in an intimate way through like a family of little kids and a dog. So that's kind of in a nutshell, that in a tiny little quick summary, that's what it was. That's been like 20 minutes, right? So
I'm
yeah,
sorry, our time is up now, but
yeah, that's right. Yeah. And now we're done. So yeah. I don't know. Did that sound to you like, did I capture everything right? Or
oh, absolutely,
would
yeah. And
would you add anything to that? Or
I mean, I think what stood out to me, I like what you said about how you tried to like bring in like multiple genres. Yeah, I mean, as you know, as a horror fan, and most of our listeners know, horror, it's such a huge umbrella. We uh, but I think generally some of the best ones really bring in elements from other genres and other types of stories to kind of make it more interesting and kind of make it a richer story, which the Western themes absolutely resonate in yours, the mysterious drifter, as played by you, right?
yes.
No.
Yeah. I know a guy. No, yeah, I was an act. Well, actually, I got it. I broke into the film business as a technical advisor, and then I became a writer because I really bugged this A-list writer I worked with. I was
Okay.
like, man, if you could just teach me how to write, that'd be amazing. And he was so gracious. He was just like, sure. And so he ended up teaching me how to write. His name's Brian Nelson, and he wrote 30 Days of Night and Hard Candy, Devil. He was one of the main writers on the Stephen King series Night Flyers,
Okay.
and what else? Da Vinci's Demons, and then also he brought me on to do another Stephen King adaptation for Hulu called 11/22/63.
Mhm.
So I got to technical direct on that, but yeah, he was fantastic and phenomenal and teaching me how to write. So I've been writing for most of my career. It's kind of been probably my main focus.
Mhm.
And then I got into acting. I went to college to be an actor. So I'm a traditionally trained actor. I was a theater major. And then reality hit where my advisor, my senior or my yeah, my about my senior year, my advisor was like, well, people don't pay hundreds of dollars a ticket to go see Shakespeare with people that look like you. And so I was like, oh man, what? And he's just like, yeah, you don't have a traditional enough look. So people aren't going to pay money to see you,
Mhm.
in the theater. And so that was kind of a wake up call. I don't know if he's being racist or if he's just trying to help me.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
understand.
curious if it's not too sensitive, like looking back on that now, like what do you think of that advice?
I think it was terrible. But he might have been right, right? Because I think 20 years ago, maybe I would have never ever been able to break into any kind of theater. It kills me because I love acting and that's my first love, and not being able to have done it since then, and all those missed opportunities. But maybe that's what had to happen for me to get to this point, right? So
Basically
I
to
don't.
create your own opportunity now.
Yeah, exactly. So it was, being able to write, I think was important, and understanding writing, I think helped me as an actor. And
Mhm.
then it absolutely helped me as a director. Uncontained is my first feature, but I think the acting thing, I was fortunate enough right before COVID to get a bunch of really great gigs.
Mm.
And then got a really great break in role. And then COVID happened. And it was just like, oh, come on. Like, shit. So that happened. And then it was like, well, what do I do during COVID? And it was like, oh, I'm going to develop this movie and then we're going to make it. And that's what we're going to do. And then that's how Uncontained came about. And that's why in that process, I was like, well, if this is going to happen and we're going to make this movie and we have $55,000 to do it,
Mm.
I have to use my wife and my kid. I begged her, and she was like, I was like, please, this is the only way it's going to work. And no, I'm kidding. I was like, do you want to be in this movie? And she's not an actor at all. She's an investment banker that
Wow.
works at a large insurance company. And so she was, she was game. She was all for it. She's very supportive. And so, and then I said,
You could have
well,
fooled
what do you think
me.
about
She
the
did.
kids?
Yeah, she
What's
did great
that?
in it. You could have fooled me. She
Thank
did
you.
great in it.
Thank you. Yeah, she's a really dynamic, fantastic human being, and I think it was easy for her. It was easy for me to tell her what I needed her to do, and it was just she just had to be relaxed and natural, and she's great. She's a badass, just like her character. So it wasn't that far off. And then I was like, oh, please let the kids be in it, whatever. And then that's why the kids are the main character. So our two children are the two children in the movie. And then of course the dog is our dog. And she's Scout is just fantastic. So they're it was something that I think our family will cherish forever together. It's that thing that we will have always done together,
Oh
which will
yeah.
always be there. And it's kind of weird because, while you're doing it, it's a lot of stress getting it off the ground. And then when you're doing it, it's so much fun. Like
Mm.
shooting a movie is just a blast. And to be able to have your family there, the most that's ever come close to this is my wife got to visit me on set once
Yeah.
on someone else's project. And to have the kids there every day, to have her here every day, and just to have Scout on set, whether she was shooting or not, was just awesome. And so, having those kind of tiny little creatures on set really opened up the crew, and we gelled right away, and everyone was on there. Like everyone's just put their guard down on like day one, and so that worked out really well. I think also the fact that our average shooting temperature was about 13 degrees
Wow.
uh, really helped, where you struggle together and you bond through that struggle.
Mhm.
Um, and all the good guys essentially in the movie were from where we are in the cold weather, and they're climatized and used to it. And then all the bad guys essentially were from LA.
Okay.
So and Peter O'Mara is from LA via Ireland. And
Mhm.
so he's such a great actor. You can't tell that he's not. He played Brett Carson, the guy with the black hat, the
Yep.
main antagonist. And he's such a phenomenal character actor that you'd never know that he was Irish, right? Like he nails that role. But they were all concerned about, like, I get a lot of really concerned actor phone calls prior to them coming here, and it was, you know, are my eyeballs going to freeze? How fast can I get frostbite?
Yeah.
Are we gonna? How long are we gonna be shooting outside? And it was like, oh, you'll be totally fine. You'll be good. And they were really good sports about it. And you could see they were in the moment doing their scenes, doing the acting outside. The wind's blowing. When the wind hits you and it's negative below wind chill and
Mhm.
it's cold, and they still were able to deliver their lines. Their faces are frozen, so it's really hard to talk. And
Oh,
they did all that. And then, wardrobe, Carrie Riley, our head of department for wardrobe, had all these gigantic, like, I don't, they looked like bear jackets to me or something. And they were able to go over the wardrobe without messing them up and they looked super warm. And so, you have these actors shaking cold and they're just like, oh my gosh, this is, how was that take? And, and whatever. And then my kids go running by and they're in like t-shirts, whatever, like, playing la 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 la, whatever. So but they're from here and they know better, but it's just, so I think it's humbling for everybody when a little 3-year-old runs by in a t-shirt, and snow bid. But
That's going to
yeah,
help everybody like step their game up for sure.
yeah, exactly. Oh, I don't need a coat, whatever. But yeah,
No.
so that was a blast. We had a lot of night shoots, but essentially we had a 15-day shoot because we just didn't have money.
Mhm.
And our AD, Catherine Hattam, was so fantastic that we were able to wrap in 14.
Hmm.
So we were able to get all the shots we needed, get all the stuff we needed, and then the last day was kind of a fun wrap up day of getting everything else we could possibly think of. So that really elevated the film.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting. Everything that went wrong ended up working out for us,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of that has to do with just a lot of planning and being able to pivot and working with really good people.
That's
So I think I have a really good, tight team that work together. I think, sometimes a lot of too many times I feel like on set there's a kind of there's a small little weird distance between talent and crew,
mhm.
and we just didn't have that on our set, right? Like I think there was an attempt by our crew to make the talent feel as awesome and celebrated as possible. But I think because the elements, because we're in a shooting at our house,
Mhm.
and then the kids and the dog, it was just like, no, we're all just working together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't even know if work, it felt like work to everybody. I think,
That's
obviously there are moments that did, but yeah, it
yeah.
was just a
That's
blast.
that's horror for you too, right? Like horror,
Yes.
everybody always says like people in the horror world are some of the nicest and kindest people in the world. So I think working on a horror set has got to be probably one of the most fun movie sets to be on.
Absolutely. I think having worked a lot of different genres, I
Mhm.
think drama is very draining and very emotionally tiring.
Yeah.
But what you shoot is generally what you see. Whereas horror, you're doing when you're shooting, this is some insane, crazy stuff that you're just like, what? I mean, there's a moment, and I don't want to ruin it, but there was a moment where I was standing over a big plastic bin, and I had probably 2 liters of blood, dripping out of me
Mhm.
into this bin, and I'm, an inch away from another actor, and we're doing, take after take, and it's like, you know, and I remember he looked up at me, he's like, "What are we doing?" Because they don't know, right? Like they know what their specific part is,
Mhm.
but you're cutting for the edit in your brain, which you haven't done yet. So in your brain, you're like, oh, I need this shot at this angle doing this. So when we edit it, it's going to look great.
Yeah.
But you have to use your imagination while you're shooting it to figure out, okay, this is what we're going to get. And so horror is a blast to shoot when you do stuff like, practical effects are so much fun, but they're really goofy looking on the day, right? Because you just don't see what it's gonna be. Whereas I think a lot like comedy, drama, um, a lot of action, not all action, but most of action. What you're doing is what you're gonna see.
Mhm.
Whereas with us, and I think sci-fi, it's there's just so much stuff that goes into it afterwards, and that's not even including CG,
Yeah.
right? Like we didn't use CG in ours, but on other projects where you're using CG, now you really don't know what you're doing, and that looks really weird. But yeah, for us, it was such an intimate film, and for such a small budget that doing the practical effects was, we had like Alison Crandall, who played the wife, the man's wife.
Mhm.
Uh, she was such a great sport. She had to do a scene where she took it was a I think a it was a our makeup head of makeup Summer Botke has her own like specialized signature blood formula
Okay.
that's unique to her. And then I don't know if I'm giving away her ingredients, but she adds a banana.
Okay.
So Allison had to put the fake blood in her mouth, which does not taste good, and a banana, and then you chew it all up. And so when it drools out of her mouth, it gives so much texture, like flesh, the banana. It's just like it looks fantastic on film. So Summer really knew what she was doing there.
I
And
love, I love the
it was
idea that
like,
there's like FX artists out there who have like trademarked proprietary
yes,
recipes for blood and guts.
exactly. And when you, as an actor, when you hear that, you're like, oh, so this isn't going to taste like yuck. Is this going to taste like, will there be some kind of decent flavor that I don't feel like I have to throw up after the second take? But no, it didn't taste great. And Allison was a great sport and she did it like multiple takes, but it just looks so phenomenal. But at the same time, it's really hard to, you're having so much fun doing it. And it's really hard to get from laughing and giggling
Mhm.
right, to getting serious because nothing's more serious than horror, right? Like you absolutely have to sell that emotional severity of what's going on in the story, right? And so it's connecting with that emotionally. I think that's the other thing with horror fans is that we're very in tune with our emotions, and we're very. It's I think it's very easy for us to empathize with what we're watching, right? And I think that's why we love horror. So one of the many reasons. But yeah, so it was a lot of fun to shoot. It was a lot of fun to make, and fortunately, it worked out really well. So it's just kind of it's a little weird right now. We're almost at 50 million views on social media.
Wow, congrats.
Roger, thank you. And it's kind of weird when you think about I didn't even as a dad, I wasn't even thinking like, oh man, like 40 plus million people have seen my kids,
Mhm.
acting in their house. And how is that going to be? Like, is that, and fortunately we're in a good environment where I haven't heard if it's affected them at school. They're young enough yet that I don't think, and, obviously kids their age haven't seen the movie,
Yeah.
but, and I think that's a saving grace, but, you know, it's it's a little weird. Like it's kind
Oh,
of I I always hated it when I watched interviews with actors and they're like, it's so surreal, and then it happens and you're like, man, it's so surreal. But
things are cliche for a reason sometimes.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, dealing with that has been interesting. Um
I can't
yeah,
wait. Yeah, I can't wait for more people to discover it, hopefully through this interview too. Um, if Is it okay if I shift gears like a tiny bit? Um,
absolutely.
and part of how I came to your movie and part of why we're talking today, I was so honored that you were willing to have a conversation, was to, in honor of this month, get a little bit more into the kind of like the theme and the importance of Indigenous horror within like the broader horror genre. Um, there's going to be a piece that I wrote on Macabre Daily, hopefully in the next day or two, that is talking about those themes and focused on your movie, focused on the movie Slashback by Nyla Inukshuk. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And then also a movie Blood Quantum by Jeff Barnaby.
Yep.
Um,
Great
so
movies.
yeah, oh, they're fantastic. Yes. It's a great triple feature, if somebody wants to put them all together. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was wondering if maybe just to start a little broadly, if it's okay to ask you just to describe yourself a little bit in terms of your identity and your connection to the indigenous culture.
Sure. Yeah. So my on my mom's side, so my dad's side, we're like 1,000,000% Norwegian.
Mm,
So like we can trace his ancestry back to like, Viking chieftains or whatever. So that's awesome, and I love that. And then the other side, my mom's side, both my grandparents were adopted,
okay.
uh, and you know, more than likely in boarding schools, and that's the generation where kids were plucked out of their homes. I don't know enough about them because my grandfather died my grandmother died when I was about 6 or 7, and then my grandfather died when I was about 9. And
Mm,
so I didn't get to know them very long. And my grandfather comes from the Pacific Island area uh, of New Zealand.
okay.
And so on his side, we're Māori, which is like the indigenous people to New Zealand. Um, and we're of the southern island we're on the kind of the tribe that's or the iwi that's on the on the kind of the northeast side. And
Hmm.
then so it's nice to know a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Whereas on my grandmother's side, I had grown I had been raised to think we were one thing only. And then my brother did a couple of DNA tests a few years ago, and they found out that we're actually indigenous to the United States. So that was a big shock to our family, and that set me on this reconnection journey to find out like what's our ancestry, what's our history, what's our connection
Mhm.
to our people and our and everything. So I've been doing reconnecting with my tribe, and that's been phenomenal. Like it's
Yeah.
been they're so welcoming and so receptive, and finally talking to a group of people in the first reconnection meeting I went to, it was amazing to see all these people that looked like me. Whereas I grew up in an area that's predominantly white, where I went to the elementary school I went to, I was one of two non-white kids in my class.
Mhm.
The high school I went to, I was one of maybe a dozen kids that weren't white in the entire school. And then the college I went to was in an area nicknamed White Cloud. It's St. Cloud, but it was nicknamed White Cloud.
Yeah.
So I've been in an environment my whole life where I've always been a very, very small group. And so that's, in essence, that's what the movie I wrote is about,
Yeah.
is is kind of being of two worlds, right? It's a metaphor for being like one foot in one world and one foot in the other.
Mhm.
So that's been my journey so far. It's been, I mean, it's really weird in reconnecting where you're like, wow, my whole life I've felt that or I've thought that way. And to find out that that is what I am is kind of, it's a big shock, but it also feels really good. And it feels really nice. The travel members have been extremely welcoming, and you know reconnection I think is an excellent word because it feels like I found these long lost cousins, and so that's been interesting, but it's also very very new, and so it's also, to be totally honest, it's such a shock because you think, I've struggled my whole life, up until college. I was a self-hating person of color. So
Yeah.
I hated the fact that I wasn't white. I just so desperately wanted to fit in.
Mhm.
And, you know, I was teased so much, and I've gotten in so many fights because people, just because I look different. And finally, as a kid, you just want to belong.
Yeah.
And not being able to belong made me hate myself. And for the longest time, for example, I used to hate when my mom would pick me up at school or drop me off or whatever, because then people would see, oh, you're different. There's the half that's different.
Yeah.
Whereas if my dad did, I was like, oh, this is great, right? Because then they can see, like, here's my whiteness, right? So growing up, it was, if I could go back in time or if I could talk to myself, it was, I would have embraced the in all of me.
Yeah.
But you, in the moment, you're doing what you can, and you just don't know.
Yeah.
So
I feel you.
that part was an interesting journey. And then in college, I just kind of, college being what it is, you go, it's not just about books and class. It's also about, I think the best part of college is discovering yourself,
Yeah.
right? And I think, you know, I we were watching a movie in somebody's room one night, like one Friday night after class. We were watching a movie in somebody's room, and it was The Crow with Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
And I was just like, everyone's like, that guy looks like you. And I was just like, whoa, this, for the first moment of my life, there's a guy on in a movie that looks like me, and he's the hero.
Yeah.
And I was
Badass
that,
to boot.
yeah, exactly. And that was a defining moment. And for someone to say, like, man, he looks like you, I'd never felt that ever.
Yeah.
So I, like, growing up, I always, playing with other friends and stuff when I was little, like I could never be the good guy. I always had to be the bad guy, like always.
Yeah.
And so, whether it was Star Wars or, I can't, whatever
Yeah.
we played, I was always, well, you can't be the good guy,
On
right?
that point
So,
of like, it's embarrassing to admit it now, but I mean, I'm of the generation where we grew up playing like it was either cops and robbers or cowboys and Indians. And, it was very clear which side was the good guy and the bad guy. Um, and I mean, The Crow was a great example of it, but I think, and I really mean this, I'm not just saying this because we're talking, like your movie, I could see like 5, 10 years from now, like it's going to be a movie like that for another young person. Because your character, the man, is a total badass in this movie, and somebody's going to look and point at their friend and be like, "Oh my God, that could be you."
right. Well, thank you. I hope so.
Yeah,
And I think that's the power of acting because I'm not like the man at all. I mean, I stub my toe and it's an, emergency disaster. Like I start crying and so my kids know it's okay to cry
yeah,
because they see me cry like every day.
yeah.
But,
Part of being
my
strong
wife
these
is,
days.
what's that?
That's part of being strong these days as a
Yeah,
man.
that's right. Yeah, no, I mean, the man would never cry, right? You could stab him in the chest and he'd be like, oh, whatever. Whereas like for me, I cut myself shaving. I mean, I shave like once a month, but if I cut myself shaving, I'm like, oh my God, I'm bleeding. Is that blood? Whatever. But my wife, much like she is in the movie where she plays the woman, and she is a total badass. I didn't have to teach her how to, or I didn't have to help her act much at all. Like what you see in that movie is kind of what you get if she's mad at you. But yeah, so I hope you're right. Like I hope that I think seeing is believing,
Yeah.
and we
It
have a
hurts
lot
you.
more of it today, right? On in television and movies. But yeah, it's there's still not. I think we're really lacking in representation for Indigenous Americans. Like I think Reservation Dogs is a phenomenal television show. I think if you get a chance to see Sterling Harjo's The Lowdown with Ethan Hawke, that is phenomenally. I mean, that's just an excellent show. And there's representation. Dark Winds. I
Mm.
love the elements of spirituality in Dark Winds. Plus, it takes place in the 60s, I think the 60s or 70s,
Yeah.
but excellent storytelling and all the heroes, right? And even the flawed heroes are indigenous, which is fantastic. They're all Dene, which is fantastic. And Zane McClernand is a phenomenal actor. Like I look at him and I'm like, man, that guy, what and he can act. Like I don't know if you've seen him in Westworld as well.
Mm.
There's
Yeah.
an episode where he is a phenomenal actor and he's that image where I think younger generations can look and go, yeah, like I'm not just identifying with somebody I see on screen, but I'm identifying with the hero,
Hmm.
right? Or someone
Yeah.
we can look up to. And, for, a part of me as well, we've been like, it's easier for my son to like look at somebody like Jason Momoa in Aquaman or The Rock in everything, and go like, yeah, that's like part of us too. Like that's, you can, so, it's nice they're there. But I think as
Yeah.
far as Indigenous American, what's
It's
that?
like that representation is like, yeah, so important. And I think that was like a theme that I saw come out in a lot of the movies that I was watching in preparation for this was a lot of themes about exploring identity, exploring like integration, how do indigenous cultures, indigenous people like interact with um, and like how do different groups either accept one another or assimilate with one another or destroy one another, come into conflict with them. And I think um, I think it's no coincidence that your movie and another movie, Blood Quantum, both feature these themes of like disease turning people into infected or zombies, and that Slashback includes an extraterrestrial threat coming down to Earth to quite literally invade this indigenous village. Um, what?
Yeah, there's another movie. I don't know if you've been able to see it, but it's called Night Flyers.
Hmm. Okay, I haven't seen that one.
I can't remember the name of the writer director. She's phenomenal. And I believe she's Anishinaabe or she's from northern in Canada.
Okay.
So she's from the northern part of North America, but great movie. And I think they submitted it to the Criterion Collection or the I don't remember now. But anyhow, it did really well. It's really production value is really excellent. Acting is good, but like you just said, it's similar themes.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you
very,
feel like
very
those
similar themes to
themes,
Netflix. What's
like,
that?
do you feel like those themes in your, I know you can probably only speak to your movie, but like, how intentional was it versus how much of it is just kind of like maybe natural osmosis of just this is your lived experience that seeps into your writing?
I think I think it's I think if you're writing well, I think there's a truism where you hear it a lot in writing circles and you hear it a lot, I think, in college and you hear it a lot on YouTube now and a lot of podcasts. And it's that the best writing is truth, right? Is you're representing and really being vulnerable with something true in your life. And I
Mhm.
think generally what that it's not saying like what you write has to be something that actually happened. That's not it at all. What they're saying is your inner truth of the experiences that you've had, right? And not only just the experiences you've had, but something where it's so detrimental to your life that it left an impact or an impression on you. And you, whether you talk about it all the time or you've dealt with it or you haven't, and if you're lucky, you haven't because it's so cathartic to put it out on the page and then actually have it go from the page to the screen.
Mhm.
Uh, there's nothing, I mean, it's so raw, right? And that's the truth that I think people are talking about that you're getting at is that those moments and whether it is portrayed on screen as the way it actually played out or if it's a metaphor for the way it played out. Um, I think to what you're saying, it's really hard to do good storytelling without it being one of those moments,
Mhm.
right? And I think you can only write I mean, you can write anything, right? But I think, again, part of that truth is the best writing that you can do for you has been something that you've experienced yourself, right? I think there's a lot of writing that goes on in television shows or writers' rooms or even other films that people are writing based on research
Mhm.
or based on. I mean, we film and television. We have such a wealth. I mean, we are in the golden age of television, right? There's a bajillion shows that you can watch right now
Yeah.
that, I mean, I keep hearing about people like, have you ever seen this? And it's like from 2017 or 2020 or what? I'm like, how did I never with, and it's got five A-list actors in it. How did I
Yeah.
not know about this or
And
whatever?
and
But
it's going into its fifth season somehow.
yeah, it's insane. It's insane how much that happens. And so I think because of that, whether it's intentional or not, a lot of times I think when writers are making something new,
Mhm.
they're influenced by something consciously or subconsciously that they've actually seen in another show or movie,
Yeah.
right? I think it's inevitable because that's in just in our pop culture, right? And so a lot of that stuff, in order to remain relevant and for people to identify with or whatever, that's just going to happen naturally. But I think really good writing that we can identify with and thing that elevates whatever genre you're in is something that is that personal truth that comes out. And so, for example, my movie is just being 100% vulnerable with like, this is definitely, I mean, obviously, I haven't ever been through a plague that turns people feral. And obviously, I haven't ever had to, take care of kids that aren't my own. Um, but uh, it's a gigantic metaphor for what I've experienced in life. And there's all these bits and pieces in my life that have happened that I've kind of, you know, jumped from point to point to point. And then the movie just kind of came about that way, story wise,
Yeah.
and things that I've had to deal with. And, I think it may be easy to say and it may be cheap to say, but death in horror is a lot of times just like tarot cards is an example of a major change in someone's life,
Yeah.
right? That's what it represents. And I think not to sound like too intellectual or heady or whatever, but that's really what the meat of a good story that sticks with you is, right? And so if you're lucky as you're writing the story before you even think about acting it and getting it on screen, your basic fundamental hope is one, I hope this connects with people emotionally. Like I hope we can come together and enough people go, oh yeah, I can relate to that. Right. Because then we're coming together. That's what art is, right? Like you want to bring people together. So hopefully that's one goal. And then the other goal is I want to be famous. And no, I'm kidding. The other goal is like, you know, the other goal is you're connecting to people emotionally, but also, am I going to get, is it going to be able to get on screen
Mhm.
and are people going to, identify with you as a human being,
Yeah.
right? At a fundamental level. And I think, that if you can do that and then hope against hope
Hmm.
that what you filmed is good enough representation of the story
Yeah.
that people are talking about it not just an hour after they watched it, but maybe a day later they're still thinking about it or talking about it, or maybe a week or a month. And if that happens, then you've made something that's memorable. And as a storyteller, I think that's a major goal, right?
Sure.
Like if you can do that, then that's gold. And so, you know, I hope with the kind of the without giving it away, coming up with the kind of two, I mean, framing up a big major moral question, what if this,
Hmm.
right? Then can you just easily kill a zombie? And not only if this, but if this, what about this?
Yeah.
Right. And so having a moral question within a moral question, I think, is where it gets people to think like, oh yeah, like you can't just kill, can you kill? I guess you could, or, would you infect somebody? Like, if this is this, then could you do this?
Yeah.
So I think that besides being fun, I think in order to be fun and in order to be memorable and to be unique, you have to have these high concept ideas that connect with people. And then for like us, for horror people,
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, it gets your brain like the, it gets the wheels turning, like like oh yeah, that's very interesting to me. So I think that's what I wanted to do with Uncontained. Was that definitely ask this moral question, but also, I don't know about you, but I just love the idea of if there were a zombie outbreak, where's my go bag and how do I grab the family and where do we go? Like I have this escape route all planned in my head. Like if that ever happens, I'm grabbing the kids, grabbing my wife, finding my
Okay.
brother, and we're going to take my SUV and we're going up north to this, secret location that we have, and that's where we're going to hold out, right? But that stuff's fun. Like, oh, how am I going to get there? Is there going to be a traffic jam? Do I get to drive over the median? Do I, all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
I think for me,
I'm seeking out the man
yeah,
as
there
soon
you
as
go.
the outbreak begins. I'm gonna need his
Well,
help.
that's good because I sleep with that knife. So no, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, it's just it's so much fun. Like I have a sweet tooth for zombie movies, right? And I can't get enough of them. Zombie series, anything zombie. I love other horror like vampire, werewolf possession, all that stuff I love. But I think zombies are kind of where it's at for me
Yeah, and that genre, it's
personally.
been, starting going back to George A. Romero and Night of the Living Dead.
Exactly.
That's been one of like the go-to genres for making including social commentary and dialogue about marginalized communities and asking these big existential important questions that many of which you do in your film.
Thank you. Yeah, 100%. Like I think George Romero is the grandfather of modern day horror, right? I mean, I know it was heavily in the zombie genre, but I think he sparked ideas for all genres, right? And I love that. And I love, like you said, I think that's Romero and, I think to a lesser extent, maybe and I shouldn't say to a lesser extent, but like the big ones, right? Like John Carpenter
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
um, Toby Hooper and all like, and even Steven Spielberg. But you're looking at a group of guys that the reason their stuff is so impactful is because it was all metaphor for something,
Yep.
right? And I just think, like I love the movie They Live with Roddy Piper.
More
And
more timely now than ever before, perhaps.
exactly, right? Like gigantic metaphor for consumerism. And I mean, it was like on the head, right? And he just, but also super entertaining, and some of the best one-liners in movie history, right? Like I don't know if it's interesting because I think the thing I love about 80s and 90s movies, I don't know about you, but I love how back then you could mix tone, right? Because you could have like super serious, scary horror, like in They Live, like just disgusting craziness that is like shocking. But then you mix in the comedy, right, with the one-liners, and it worked, right? Like every Arnold Schwarzenegger movie ever, right? Like you have Predator, then was like full of action and suspense, and seeing it for the first time, you don't know what's happening and what's going on with this alien and what, and these giant, huge steroid dudes are scared of this. Like what is going on? And then they make a joke with a one-liner,
Yeah.
and it just alleviates the tension. But it works so well. But today we would never have that, right? Like it just doesn't work for people. And it's interesting to me that there's the nostalgia where I love 80s and 90s horror, right? But today's horror I love too, but they're just so different. I mean, couldn't be more different, right? Like in A Violent Nature, there's absolutely no comedy in that whatsoever, right? I mean, that's just, and it wouldn't be appropriate,
Yeah.
right? Whereas,
With every genre or with every era, we almost need to like reinvent ourselves and find new ways to tell the same stories and tell the same messages, just to different audiences in different context.
yeah, you just have to fit with the times, right? And I think it's nice that we evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but yeah, I'm right now, my son Jack in the movie, he just turned 12, and so we're starting to dip our toes and like, oh, I'm like, oh, can he watch RoboCop? Probably not. Like, but we can watch Predator, and because that's 20 years ago that wouldn't have been appropriate, but now because the needle has moved so much, like with The Walking Dead and
Yeah.
I don't know, everything Disney movies, right? That kids watch has kind of pushed them more towards what's it was not acceptable 20 years ago. So
Yeah.
and then again, special effects too. Like they just see so much, and they're inundated with so many special effects that watching Predator with a 12-year-old boy today in 2025 is just like,
Oh
you
man.
know, like, story's great, action's great, but the Predator, he's like, well, why does he move so weird? And I'm just like, oh, like no,
Oh, back in
there's
my day.
yeah, because there's a guy in that suit. That's why he moves funny. Like, and then in today, like he and I went and saw Predator Badlands, and yeah, there's a guy in that suit too, but he's also accompanied by great CGI, right? So, why? I mean, his toes curling and his fingers moving and everything else. There's no suspension of disbelief because they don't need to,
Yeah.
right? And masking techniques and expressions in the special effects makeup now is so far advanced
Mhm.
compared to where they were. I mean, it's amazing what Stan Winston could do, right? And that this just phenomenal, blows my mind. But today, it's with modern technology, it's evolved so much that it's pretty flawless, and to the point where I can't tell between puppeteering and CGI, which is great. Kudos to the CG, or I'm sorry, the puppeteering teams and the special effects makeup artists of today. But like,
Oh man. Well, as a fellow dad, before we go too far down the rabbit hole of
yeah,
like introducing our kids to horror and talking about 80s and 90s horror, I could talk to you about that for a whole nother hour, and
Yep.
we'll have to invite you back for another interview on that. But I want to be super respectful of your time. And I know you said we have to wrap up around now. So before we do that, could you just share real quickly, like people who are watching, how can they like where can they find your movie? How can they stay in touch with you?
I feel like we just got started. Like
I
I'm
know,
just warming up. Like I have some jokes.
it's
Like,
just the intro.
yeah, what the heck? We got to get into like the we got to get into like Batman and no, I'm kidding.
I promise there will be a part two based on this.
Okay. Yeah, please. That would be great. Now we're just getting warmed up. Yeah, people can find me on I think the if you want to DM me or comment or whatever, the best place to get me is on Instagram. I'm at Morley_Nelson. Um, if you want to watch Uncontained, it's on Amazon Prime or Tubi. And we're about to have a charity or a screening, red carpet screening for charity. We love this local charity called Winning Pathways, and they help all children with disabilities
Okay.
obtain equipment or scholarship funds for education or whatever they need to get out of kind of like out of their bedrooms and into to interact with people or play sports or you know whatever it is that they need so that everybody of all differing abilities can participate and enjoy life. But they specifically focus on kids from lower income families that are severely impacted. So again, if helping kids that need prosthetics or wheelchairs or glasses, whatever, right? So we love that charity. We love the
That's awesome.
foundation.
Will you
So we're
please,
holding
can you send me like the information to that so we can include it when we post this interview?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. So we'll be doing a red carpet screening on the 15th,
Oh,
and all proceeds will be going to them. But we'll be doing a an auction. We'll be auctioning off uncontained DVD, or you can buy an uncontained DVD, and my entire family will sign it. So you'll have the man, the woman, Jack, Brooke, and we'll even have Scout stamp the DVD. But those will be for sale, and 100% of that goes right to that charity, Winning Pathways.
nice.
So and thank you. I'll send you that link. But we'll be doing that. And then I recently teamed up with um, Aaron Bennett, who did the Joker's Wild short. I hope everyone watches. He's getting Joker's Wild 2 off the ground right now as we speak. So a sequel. And then Anthony Cousins, who did Frogman 1, and then he's currently doing the festival route with Frogman 2. And then Dennis Kahlo and Bethany Watson, who did the Trouble with Tessa TV series,
Yep.
which I think you can catch all those on Tubi. Maybe not Aaron Bennett's Joker's Wild. You can see that on YouTube at Joker's Wild. Um, but we came together as a team and decided we're going to do a project together. And we'll be announcing that project shortly. But we just all get along really well. I've known Aaron. I know Aaron the best. Anthony and I know have known each other the longest. And then Dennis and Bethany, we just connected, and everyone gets along so well. And so we're super excited to do this project together, and that'll be coming. Hopefully, we'll be in production on that in January. That's kind of our goal, and then yeah, we'll go from there. And then hopefully February we'll be in production on the prequel to Uncontained.
Oh, that's awesome. Nice.
So yeah, I got to grow my hair out again. So hopefully I'm going to be downing the biotin, just like bottles of biotin to get it. No, I'm going to have to wear a wig this time,
Yeah.
but that's okay because at 13 below zero, the wig is going to keep me warm. And I'll even, and spoiler alert, I'll be even more naked in this one. So, um, you know, got to take
More
Tom Cruise's playbook, right? More the stunts have to be bigger and
nudity,
better.
more hair, I guess just less treadmill probably since you won't be there.
Yeah, exactly. Less treadmill, more more naked in the snow. So it's like a balance, a
I
fine
know you,
balance,
but
right?
you'll find a way to incorporate running into
Yeah,
the
exactly. Yep. Yeah. Not I did it. Well, I guess I can't say that. Tom Cruise, he like runs and everything. He's got this really specific run that he does. But I'm like, well, if he can do it on ground, like just flat surfaces, I can do it in the snow, in 4 feet of snow. That's, but no, I'm kidding. But yeah, no, I'm not kidding. I will be running in snow more, but
You
the
heard it
stunts
here
we're gonna.
first. Morley Nelson is officially challenging Tom Cruise to a race on.
No, no, I don't want to disappear. You'll like never hear from me again. Like the yeah, no, yeah, it's I look forward to doing like again taking a page out of Tom Cruise's playbook with Mission Impossible. Like every Mission Impossible successfully is bigger and better because of the. I mean, he really ups the ante on his stunts in each successive movie, right? And he is that is phenomenal. And I don't think any actor has ever done that. So that's my goal. There's like the next Uncontained movie, there's going to be probably, as it's written, there's 10 times more stunts, a ton more action. This will be less of a Western and more of a survival thriller structure. But yeah, it'll be a lot of fun and a lot of running in the snow and freezing my freezing my butt off. So yeah,
Well,
good time.
we
Good
can't
time.
wait to see it, and
Thanks.
we'll have you back to chat about that too. Um,
Awesome. Thank
so
you, Brian.
yeah, Morley, seriously, I really, really appreciate you being so open and transparent, talking to us about your movie, talking to us about Indigenous horror. So yeah, everybody out there in Macabre Daily World, find Uncontained, see it before the prequel comes out, and look for this interview and for some additional coverage from us about Uncontained and some other movies in the Indigenous horror world coming real soon. So, all right. Bye, Morley. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.